much are the economies in this part of the world out here in Asia that perhaps are lagging with their vaccine rollout and therefore struggling economically, just not finding that they can get their recovery on track at the pace that they would like to? How much are they caught in a dilemma where they're also faced with inflationary pressures, but they might not have the ability to keep on easing monetary policy because therefore they would let inflation run even more rampant?
Yeah, I think in this, I would be more concerned about the situation in India and Southeast Asia more so than the North Asia side. I think for a North Asia side, as we see, like China recovery has got back to potential, and they have entered like a policy normalization phase already, right? And for Korea and Taiwan, growth was resilience, and then it's further supported by strong exports and also the recovery of consumer demand. But over on the south side, like India and Southeast Asia, it's true, right? The delayed rollout of vaccinations really has a hinder on growth recovery. And also the cost-push inflation right now kind of limit room for further monetary policy easing. But actually more concern me is the latest strength of the or support of the US dollar and also higher treasury yields that keep the US dollar supported. And this actually denying a favorable tailwind on EM Asia. And this would cause pressure on some of the current account deficit economies. And also, right, as this year passed by, current account surpluses that reported previously in some of the Southeast Asia economies are likely to turn back into deficit. So that may probably cause some pressure as well.
Christiaan, you pretty much read my mind on this one, because the linkages, and we're talking about inflation as though it's a US story, but it feeds back to Asia in the wake of a stronger dollar, importing essentially inflation for a lot of Asian economies. A case in point, essentially India, right? And the current account deficit there, given the fact that a rising dollar and rising oil prices is double whammy essentially for their oil import bill. So how do you see local central banks or Asian central banks tackling that issue, tackling that risk?
I think at this time, what I'll say is that in Asia, you can see Asian central bank probably have limited and probably stopped some of the easing momentum that they had before. So there's like, my expectation is that we probably may not see further rate cuts for this year. But then whether they will hike or not really depends. I think in a sense, it's also because the US dollar is so important. And we should not really jump into the conclusion that the dollar is just going to be like strengthening from here onwards, right? In a lot of sense, we see that, yeah, definitely there's notion of US exceptionalism and that the dollar got beat up. But as recovery in Europe or Japan picks up, there could be support on the euro and the yen, and that could like cause downward pressure on the dollar. And if the dollar is well behaved, then I think the pressure over on Asia will be more manageable.